hello to another. Wait, wait, what am I saying? Wait.
Get the script.
Hello and welcome to another podcast episode, another panel that I am very, very excited for because I got a group of amazing people that are going to be sharing all their experience and knowledge with us because I don't know as much as I would like to. So I am making them do all the studying for me. So then they can just teach me everything they know, teach us everything they know. So today we are going to be talking about one taboo topic that is not often discussed in mental health, but I think it's very important for us to start discussing. So that's why I got this panel together. So with that, we can go ahead and get started. And first, we can do really brief introductions, just sort of like your name. What you do and why you're interested in sort of like this taboo topic.
I guess I'll go first on that one. So
You're,
my name
you're
is
the
Marc.
most professional, so.
I mean, don't want a bit too much dead air. My name is Marc Davis. I am the owner of Alchemy Counseling in Long Island, New York. I specialize mainly in treating teenagers to young professionals, so like 15 to 30, dealing with depression, anxiety, and suicide. I've been dealing with suicide or treating it, helping it, ever since I was an undergrad, really. I volunteered at the Long Island Crisis Center, which here in Long Island is a crisis call center for runaway youth, suicide, you name a crisis, we deal with it. And so ever since then, that's where I really started helping people who have been dealing with it. And I've been specializing in treating that ever since. And that is the big and small of it. There's definitely more. I came up with a book. We could talk about that more later. But that is the big and small of who I am and why my connection to treating suicide.
Hope, you're the next one like on my screen, so
Okay,
I'm volunteering you.
I was gonna say it's totally different on my screen, but so you got to guide us. So I'm Hope. I do a podcast called Mind Brain Movies. I do that with Elizabeth, where it's all about mental health in TV and movies. But I also was a former crime scene cleaner. And I also used to be involved with the Tourette's Association of Greater Washington, as well as, just I've been in the medical field for pretty much my entire life. So on all aspects, I've literally seen life in pediatrics to death and everything in between. So, and suicide's always been a lingering thing throughout. And yeah, that's why I'm here.
Hi, I'm Amber, and I am a crime scene cleaner in Fresno, California. I have my own business, Reaper Clean LLC, and I basically am an advocate in death care. So suicide is really big for us here because this is something that we're responding to very often. And I'm getting involved with things like the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention and just trying to be an advocate where I can be and talk about death openly and honestly. So very excited to be here and be a part of this podcast today.
Hi, I'm Brooke. I own my own business called Royalty Design Co. I'm a content creator, and I have a mental health project called the Pinky Promise Project that I make through my business, all the stuff for it. And suicide is something that I've struggled with since I was 8 years old, and it's always been a very hard thing in my life, something that's, I really didn't think I was going to make it to see my 30th birthday, and last year I did, and we were going to keep on keeping on. And I really do believe that we need to end the stigma around mental health and talking about suicide, and just, it is okay to not be okay, and there are people that are like you and you are not alone. And I've turned my pain into purpose and my passion, and trying to bring community together to save lives around the world.
That's one of the things that I really love, just community. That's what we need. I feel like it's my parents immigrated to the US when I was like 9, but before then we lived in Mexico, and there it was a lot different. Everybody it was a small town. Essentially we moved from a small town in Mexico to a small town in California, but the vibe is completely different. In Mexico, there was a lot of community. Everybody sort of knew each other. If I misbehaved and somebody saw, my mom was going to find out because everybody knew my mom and her phone number or whatever. So there's sort of like that aspect of community that we don't really have here. And as soon as I started sort of like looking into melding mental health and geek culture, I started realizing that growing up, I didn't really have that culture. I mean, of that community, because I didn't really have a culture. I didn't feel Mexican enough. I didn't feel American enough. I just didn't feel like I belonged anywhere. And then I found my fellow geeks and nerds, and I'm like, yay, this is my people. And ever since then, I'm just sort of like collecting them like Pokemon. Like I just like, but like, so earlier we were like, before we started actually recording, we were talking about how we met each other and how we know. And a lot of the times it was just like, hey, I like something you posted on social media, and we was like a logo or like the name of your company, and I was like, collab with me because this is really awesome and I love what you're doing. And that's basically how I got to meet a lot of these people. And I just noticed, Brooke, that I had this your band that you gave me, and I was like, I'm fiddling with it, and I'm like, oh, I had my fidget toy, and I was like, oh no, just fiddling with the
Yeah.
thing. Anyway, we'll talk about your project in a little bit. But yes, community is something that is very important. And I think that's part of the reason why I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to get everybody to be connected, get to know each other, and know that there are resources and like people out there who are like you, who are struggling with the same thing. And, you can share that support for each other. So I am going to go ahead and get started with the hard-hitting questions. And actually last night or early this morning, I started thinking about how there are certain topics or words that I think YouTube doesn't really necessarily like. And then so I was like,
Yeah.
wait, I watch a lot of YouTube and a lot of them, they're like, oh no, this video is gonna get demonetized if you like say certain words or whatever. And I was like, oh no, my video is gonna get demonetized. And I was like, oh, actually, I'm not making any money out of this, so it's okay. As long as people watch it, it's fine. So yeah, so I guess it doesn't really matter. So we are actually going to be saying a lot of things, and I actually totally forgot to do a content warning before we got started, so I'm going to do it now before we dive a little bit deeper. But we are going to be talking about a lot of red flags, a lot of potential triggers. So this might be an episode that you might save up to discuss with your mental health provider, or if you feel like you're in a safe situation, then you can go ahead and watch. Otherwise, if you are watching and you feel yourself triggered, please end the episode. You don't have to continue watching the video. Just stop and reach out to your community, to your support. There's a lot of resources out there, and we will share those in the description of the video as well, for easy access for everyone as well. So yeah, with that sort of being said, I'm just gonna throw it up out there, and anybody who wants to pick it up can pick it up. So why should we not be afraid of talking about suicide or death? Because I know when I was starting doing therapy, I didn't want to talk about it. I still had that mentality of like, well, if I ask them, do you think about suicide? What if they start thinking about it? That's always what I thought. Like, what if I put that thought in their brain or whatever? That's how when I started, that's the mentality that I had.
You
So
inception them.
yes, like what if I like gave them the idea and they weren't even thinking about it?
But it's a very common thought, oh, I'm going to put it in their head. A lot of people think that. And I mean, I just say to people all the time, listen, it's never happened to me in all my years that I ask, have you been thinking about killing yourself? And they go, I haven't. That's a really good idea. That's never happened ever. No one's like, oh my God, that's such a good idea.
It's not like suggesting Starbucks.
Right, exactly.
It's kind of like when I think about talking about sex, like talking about sex education isn't going to get you pregnant. Talking about death isn't going to get you dead.
1,000,000%.
But it is one of
honestly,
those
both are taboo.
topics.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, Liz.
Oh, stop
Yeah,
spilling my.
Liz.
That's my
Yeah,
next one.
Liz.
But it's true. I mean, that's why we can't be afraid to talk about it, because if by not talking about it, we give it more power. And then people just suffer in silence. It's like an infection that festers. Sunlight is the best antiseptic, so that's the way to fight it, is to bring it out in the open and to talk about it.
Absolutely. Especially with different, just because I guess the way the world has been for a while regarding suicide as a topic, like culturally, religion, just in person, a lot of people want to hush, or they don't want to bring shame on their families, or there's this a lot of shame-based culture around this, or even there's like a lot of religious aspects. Some people may believe that suicide leads to, not going to heaven or things like this. So it has been something that people do not want to talk about. And so being able to break these stigmas and open up the door and discuss like suicide, because it is happening. I mean, we all have friends or family, and now we're in a situation, I think today, especially in the United States, where we all know somebody connected to us who has died by suicide, or a friend of a friend, and it's in our lives, and so we should talk about it because it's this big thing that's happening around us. But we have to address it. We can't just ignore it and pretend we're not seeing it, because then how do we fix that?
Exactly.
Mhm.
100%.
I think.
Exactly. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no. I was saying, I think the biggest thing for me is how it affects kids. Like I said, I used to be a part of the Tritsim Association, and a story that I had was I was a camp counselor, and this kid that I was the counselor of couldn't have been more than like 11, I think, at the time. And because of their Tourette's and other things going on, they were like, I really wanted to end my life. And they're like, but coming to this camp really saved me. But I was really close to it. And that like really hit me, that, that this child was so affected by their circumstance, and they didn't even tell their parents. They went and told me because they felt safe with me, because I was very open. I was very honest. I was like, yeah, I have Tourette's too. It fucking sucks. I'm right here with you. And the fact that, and I think that's why it's so important. Maybe not, I mean, yes, it's important for everyone in general, but when you have these children going through these things, especially with the evolving world, how things are affecting kids more and more, like with COVID, like that affected young kids drastically. And I think if we don't talk about this with our kids, they're going to have the wrong perception about this, and then have like bad habits regarding these things. So the earlier we can debunk things, the better.
Totally. And I feel like just maybe not being so direct with like, oh, have you ever thought about suicide? Or, coming to like my 6-year-old and be like, hey, but today, this is what we're going to talk about. Like, like, maybe not
Yeah.
going all bananas like that, but just opening up the discussion about it and being able to break down those barriers and create a safe place and a community, and be able to provide resources to help people through it. Because even like we've all mentioned, if we aren't going through it ourselves, there's no way we don't know somebody that isn't going through it themselves, or a friend of a friend, or someone that is within our circle of our people that isn't at least struggling with suicide and these type of dark deep thoughts on some level of scale. Like, you don't have to be, at my foot's on the cliff and I'm about to go. It could just be the thought of like, today's really heavy and I just don't want to anymore. Like, suicide doesn't mean, hey, I want to die today. Like, it could mean so many other multitudes of things that then ultimately do end at that. But just being able to talk about that before it gets to that end point is so huge. It is so, so, so big. And I feel like talking about it is definitely helping end that stigma, and then being able to create these communities and these safe places for everybody, because community, I really believe, is what is going to get us all through it.
1,000,000%. And even like you said, like, kind of building off that, it's not that people want to die. There's a stark minority of people that actually want to die. It's a huge minority. What's actually happening is they just want an end to that pain. It's too much, and they feel like it's their only way out. And we need to have this kind of conversation for people to understand and talk about it. I mean, just to build off what Amber was saying before, the religious aspect of it, and people's cultural viewpoints, like we're seeing the change little by little by
Mhm.
talking about it. I mean, just to bring in from my culture, the topic has been changing a little bit in the Jewish community. That whereas before, the very classic religious outlook of, oh, you killed yourself, you're going to hell, you committed a grave sin or something of that nature. There is not fully yet, but change has been making that there are now rabbis who are seeing it less so as a sin and more so as the consequence of an illness, of depression, something that's going on inside of you that you don't want to die. It's just you want to enter the pain. And so we are making that change. So why do we need to talk about it? To continue the good work that we've already started doing and the results that we're already seeing.
But one of the things that I often tell the people that I work with is that emotions are weird. There's usually like two or three that are acceptable, and it's usually anger, happiness, and all the other ones are icky. We don't want to feel those, right? So what happens is when we see someone who's like crying, we're like, what do I do? What do I say? And so we just panic. We just don't do nothing. We pretend we're not looking. So I think that's part of sort of like the problem of why this is considered taboo, because people don't really know what to say or what to do in situations like that. So then I guess that will be my next question. Is like, what can people say, or where can they find the resources or information for them to reach out to those friends? Because that's important, right? Like Marc was saying, a lot of these people really want help, but they just don't know where to get it. So if we were to ask the question, have you ever thought about suicide, or do you have suicidal thoughts, or like, are you thinking about killing yourself? Those are all things that offer that person an opportunity to say, yes, I need help. I don't know what else to do.
So I
Go
want to backtrack for half a second on what you were saying about the emotions.
Mhm.
I looked behind me and I have these little emotion spots. I don't know if you guys are familiar with them, like working with kids. My
Oh, the
therapist showed
books?
me them, the book, and then they're actual little like stuffy, like hockey puck size, like things,
Yeah.
and then the emotions, and you learn about them all. I think
Yeah.
something that is so hard too is emotions are weird and they're uncomfortable. And so many of us were not taught how to properly sense or articulate emotions and what our emotions actually are. And then so I wanted to bring up my favorite one. It's called Scribble. It's this white one with all these colored like scribbles all over it, because you feel all the emotions. You just feel like a scribble whirlwind of a mess, which is my daily life. So I very much relate with that one. And I feel like that's something that's been really hard for me to work through, whether dealing with my own mental health issues or trying to be there for my community and provide resources. And just a little bit of sliver of hope is trying to figure out how to navigate the emotions and then how to recognize them as well. It makes me think of that commercial with the soccer, the two guys that are going to soccer games. One guy looks really sad, and then one guy looks really happy, and then the guy that was happy during the games was the one that ended up committing suicide, because you can't tell, because on the outside we're so good at masking and covering those things. So I feel like even if being presented the opportunity of, hey, have you thought about killing yourself, or hey, are you suicidal, on any level of the scale, do you have any sort of these idealizations or thoughts of, if I were to yeet my car this way or whatever it may be, like before getting there, you have to, or I'm sorry, hold on, whoop, ADHD moment. Before being able to actually answer that, even with when you are presented with it, it's still so hard to actually admit it and say yes, especially if working through your own emotions, you can't get to that point, because if all you feel is anger, or if you're so used to masking and you just are so used to bearing your emotions. So I feel like creating a safe place to learn about our emotions and then trying to recognize them and work through and be like, hey, I see that you're happy, but I also see that it doesn't matches your eyes. Like, it doesn't go up to your eyes. It doesn't go up to your face. It doesn't go up to your cheeks, like your body language. Like, I've kind of been noticing some things, like, how are you really? Like, and I feel like that's a really big thing in talking with someone that does struggle with suicide and suicidal thoughts. So I'm sorry, Liz, I just wanted to, like, before we keep going, hold on, emotions are big, because emotions are weird and they are really hard to navigate and to work through. And I know that the emotion spots are like for kids, but for me, I have like all of them. I'm really surprised they don't fit on my bookshelf.
No, that's so
Um,
important to bring up.
Yeah, it's just, and like trying to teach my 6-year-old that, right, to try to break the cycle, because I wasn't taught about my emotions, and my emotions are a mess now, and so we're going to break the cycle, and I'm going to work through it. I'm going to teach my son, and we're going to learn about it together, because it's okay, and we're going to create this new thing of teaching about emotions. And even though they are weird and they are uncomfortable, we have to feel it to heal it. Well, if I don't know what I'm feeling, how am I supposed to heal it and let it go? Because it just feels like a mess. So I feel like that's a really, really big thing and resource that I think needs to be out there for communities and stuff.
Also,
I would oh, go
I
ahead.
have a question for Marc, actually. So I forget who said suicide was on like different levels, because it is. There's people who like actively seek it. There's people who
Mhm.
actively think it. But then I don't know what the terminology is called, and that's what I kind of the question is the people who I guess like passive suicide, where it's
That's
like
it. Yeah.
where they don't actively seek it, but they're just like, well, if a car hit me today, that's cool.
That's exactly what it's called. It's called passive suicidality or passive suicide ideation. That's exactly what it is. And on the lethality scale of, we do our lethality assessment, that generally tends to be low because they don't have a plan. The means and methods aren't really there. It's just, well, if it happened, then okay. And the reason that's still on the lethality scale is because that can, again, that's like the infection that festers, that can very easily become, worse if something bad were to happen. That's saying that there's stuff in their life that's going on that is not so great, and they don't have the coping skills in order to manage it. So if something really bad happens, or even just that pile that's already there, even more in it, they can become more lethal. They might actually have a plan. They might actually go through with it. So that's why even passive suicidality, we really do want to jump in and try to treat as soon as possible as well.
So on that note, that is what I was experiencing and going through that led me to the point of creating the Pinky Promise Project in 2022. I was driving, I would do these road trips from Reno to Oregon, Reno to Colorado. I went on just a really long road trip. Life was amok and all of the things. And I did not care if I was speeding in a semi-swerved lanes. I didn't care if I fell asleep while I was driving. I didn't care if any number of things happened to me, I would pull over at a truck stop to sleep because it's like an 18-hour drive. And oh, well, if something happens to me, like whatever, I don't really care anymore. Like I don't have a point, I don't have a purpose, I don't have a reason, and all of those things. And then it very, very much festered and grew to my entire being. And then there was no more ignoring it. And then I knew that I had to find a sliver of hope, and I grounded myself in nature. I was doom scrolling, right? Like down the hole, and like, oh, well, their life's perfect. And oh my God, well, if I can't just be happy, da, 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 da. And I saw a picture of Garden of the Gods in Colorado, and that's where I was driving that weekend. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go there. I don't necessarily care if I make it there, but that's my plan. I'm going to go there. And even while I was driving, I was like, you know what? I kind of hope I make it there. I want to see it. And that was the first sliver of hope that I had felt in so long. And I clung to it for dear life. And then when I got there, it's nature, you're grounding, you look up, you see the mountains, you just see beauty, and it's just quiet, and you can just be still. And that little sliver of hope turned into something more. And then that's when Joe Dirt played in my head, and Life's a Garden, you gotta dig it and keep on keeping on. And I created my mental health project after that. But from that point, not to barge over you guys, but from that point, that was literally what I lived through and experienced. Was it started as this little, oh, I just don't care what happens to me. I don't care what happens to me. I'm not going to look both ways before I cross the street. I'm not going to buckle my seatbelt. I'm going to speed. I'm not going to look both ways before I turn, whatever it may be, right? Like anything. I just did not care at all whatsoever anymore. And then it very, very much grew and
You
grew
and
and
nature
grew
made
and
a
grew.
pinky promise.
Yeah.
And so what's interesting about what you're talking about too, because we're talking about, the conversation with suicide, was you had this conversation going on in your own head with yourself. So the amazing thing is just kind of like your train of thought and how you went through all of this of like, not wanting to be here, what the heck, everything, everyone else is perfect. This is, just these thoughts and these feelings, but you found you were looking for that purpose, that you wanted to go here. Now you're feeling like you want to see this, you want to ground yourself in this sort of self conversation to healing, to where you were in a suicidal moment of or timeline, but you were having an internal monologue and trying to get to to this type of safety or this realization or finding something that grounding, and then you go there and you do this action, and in a way like you're saving yourself. And I just
Literally, yep.
that's
Yeah.
that's just amazing to me, just because we are talking about start other people starting the conversation with people about being suicidal or asking questions, and then you're actually in it, and then you're conversing with yourself on do I or do I not. And I just think that's a really interesting thing that that should be talked about more, this internal monologue of somebody who is going through an experience.
It is so real.
Crisis.
It is
And
so real.
and also because some people we know, like you found this within yourself to bring yourself to this I lack of a better word, this safety for yourself, and being able to climb out of that rut, versus how other people may not have gone that route, or may not have been able to have the gravity to find something like that to hold on to. And so it's just it's humbling, and it's very, I feel like what you just said was very, very important to talk about. And then also, just sidebar, as far as other people starting conversations about suicide or just being concerned. And I just want to bring up the difference between like kids and adults. And so it's it's so much easier as a kid to make friends, right? You just, oh, hi, I like that dinosaur too, what's up, versus like as an adult, and how hard it is for us to talk to one another, and how awkward it can be, or even as a teenager. And so there's this really cool website called Seize the Awkward, and it's actually a conversation starter for people who may be worried about somebody but don't know how to bring it up because they're embarrassed. And it's like for teenagers, but it's just so funny because it could be used for adults too. Like I have the website open right now, and it says, seems like something's up. Do you want to talk about what's going on? I've noticed you've been down lately. What's going, tell me about it. Or just ways to like insert into conversations, not necessarily asking if somebody wants to die by suicide, but, and then what you brought up about like, this is interesting with adults versus kids too. And like you said, how you're teaching your child how to learn the difference between like actions and words and emotions. Like, so if you notice your child has not been eating, but you go, hey, what's going on? They go, oh, everything's okay. And but you notice the actions they're doing. Maybe they're not eating. Maybe they're just going straight to their room. Maybe they're not they're just not acting how they usually would, but maybe they're speaking how they usually would. But just noticing these things that don't add up is important for both on the children's scale, as well as noticing in our adult friends and family members if they're off, and starting those conversations, because it's like maybe they're telling you they're okay, but still communicating like, hey, but I noticed you didn't eat dinner tonight, or hey, just checking in with you. I want to say that you missed your big soccer game. What's going on there? But or because sometimes as I think, especially I would say in teenagers, like you notice these changes, especially with different friend groups or potentially drugs and other avenues for people who are self-medicating or trying to fit in, or bullying or stuff that's going on. There's a lot of quick changes that sort of happen, and being able to just still just have these mini conversations, I suppose, like not necessarily super intense conversations, but these check-ins. And of course this is for adults as well, but definitely I see with teenagers a lot of these things.
Yes, it's so important for prevention. It's noticing the congruence or lack thereof.
Being able to like read between the lines and being able to actually see past whatever front and mask that the child or teen. And I mean, even us as adults, like you just said, Amber, I mean, honestly, we learned that somewhere.
Yes.
And even now as an adult, like, you kind of started as a kid and then it kind of just keeps going. And here we are as adults. And now us as adults, we're like, oh my God, what's wrong with us? Oh, we need to help everybody. And it's like, yeah, we do. And that's where we started it with. So the fact that some people are like, oh, kids don't struggle with mental health. It's like more than we know. And bullying is so much harder today. I can even imagine. It's a scary world.
Oh, it's but, yeah, and that's why after you reach out to them, again, that's where therapy comes in, and even just a friend or a coworker, I'm like, yeah, I don't know. There's nothing wrong with saying, listen, I'll go with you to the first appointment. Having that moral support. But even when you're finding that therapist, it's really important. And I actually have a question for Dr. Sanchez in regards to this. It's really important to find someone who knows what they're doing in regards to this. So, and this is where my question to you, Dr. Sanchez, comes in. I know in my program, in grad school, we had a crisis intervention course, but they really didn't teach us a whole lot on suicide. I'm curious, you went through a PhD program, a doctoral program. I'm curious in yours, what was it like for you, your crisis intervention course and suicide training?
You had a class on it?
Okay, my point. So it's
Because we didn't. That was more something that, I mean, we did get training, but it was it had to be at whatever practicum we were at. So we kind of got like yearly trainings, and some of them took it very seriously, others not as much. It really depended on, you know, who was doing the training, but we didn't really get like a class on it or anything like that.
Right. And so that's why I really do appreciate you sharing that. And that's my point, is that unfortunately, a lot of these programs are not, whether master's level, doctoral program, hell, even for psychiatrists, it's not preparing enough. And that's why when you're going to find somebody, you know, you can look on, you know, what their specialties are, what they're trained in, what they're certified, and to make sure you're getting somebody who is knowing what they're doing in this regard, that specializes in this kind of struggle.
And one thing too, I will add to that, is that one thing I say on the first meeting to my clients is the most important thing is that you feel comfortable with your therapist.
100%.
Because if you don't feel comfortable, it's not going to be a great experience for you. So shop around, just the same way that you go to different stores, try to find, you know, the jeans that fit just right and that the right price for you. Do the same thing with your therapist.
So then I have a question on this. So I had a therapist and I felt very comfortable with my therapist. I loved her. She very much could have been my best friend. She very much turned into my best friend, just because I unloaded and stuff. And at first I thought that it was helping me because I like felt better, right? Because I was finally unloading. But then it very much turned into, I didn't feel like I was getting the tools and stuff, but I still felt comfortable with my therapist, but I felt like my therapist wasn't helping me any, and I was still struggling really hard. And then I almost felt like she was getting annoyed when I would bring up what I was struggling with, because it was the same things, but I'm not getting the tools to work through them and fix them.
Right.
So then how am I supposed to get better? And I didn't know how do you try to navigate that? Because that's, you know, a very tender relationship anyways, right? This person knows so much about you and all of these things, to then almost like break up with your therapist and still struggle with yourself, and then try to hunt down a new therapist, but then almost having like the trauma of, well, I've unloaded, like literally just like a relationship, like I've unloaded all of my baggage, all of my shit.
It is.
And I don't want to have to go through that again just to be let down, because I don't have to bring all this stuff back up just to be like, oh, well, I guess I'm stuck with it forever and I'm just broken. Like,
No.
because that doesn't make me feel good either. So for you guys that are
Can I answer
therapists,
that?
how would you, how would you handle
So
that?
I tell my patients all the time, as therapists, we're like a GPS. We can get you to where you want to get to in the most efficient way possible, but you need to tell us what the destination is. And by you tell, and then again, you're behind the wheel of the car. You get to decide what route we end up taking and how fast we go. But I can help you, but I need to know what you're looking for. Are you looking for strategies? Are you looking for empowerment? What are you looking for? Okay, that's what you want. Those are your goals. Awesome, we can do that.
Awesome.
We're a GPS.
So it's just kind of coming into like looking for a therapist, being like, hey, end result, these are the things that I'm looking for, because I struggle. Like I need tools and I need strategies and I
Yes.
need a toolbox basically. And
Yes.
cool. Awesome. Thank you.
Of course. Dr. Sanchez, what do you think? I want to get your input.
Well, actually, I'm going to save mine. I'm going to have Hope go first, because we've talked about this before and I want to hear.
Oh,
Yeah. So I am. Oh, first off, this is totally side tangent, but I feel awkward calling you Liz now after hearing Dr. Sanchez being said like 20 times, and I'm like, it's
I'm
just
sorry.
Liz. I'm like, it's
okay
just
with
Liz.
me.
But
You were okay with me being like, oh no, I'm
She's the
Dr. Grimling. You wanted me to introduce myself like that, and now you're awkward. It's
no,
fine.
it's just weird hearing it, because I'm like, it's just Liz. It's like that's
Oh,
Liz.
it's weird hearing it to me too.
But,
Anyway, sorry.
no, but so I am not I don't have a doctorate. I'm not a psychologist, but I'd like to talk about it from the patient's perspective, because I've been in therapy, in and out of therapy my entire life for multiple different reasons. I've been around the block, and not only that, but I've been in it in different states, because I've lived in multiple different states. So I did learn, and I think the biggest thing is being my own advocate, because while in therapy, like I may not be like cured or fully healed, but you do still learn more about yourself. And it might not be what you need at that time, but there's been times where, like you said, Brooke, like I was so comfortable with this like one particular therapist I had. Not gonna lie, I was also biased because she had a therapy cat, and I loved the therapy cat. But not gonna lie, I was totally biased on that.
Mine had the spots. I think that's why I liked her so much too. I get it.
And I learned a lot from her. She helped me get to certain resources that I needed. Like at the time, she really opened my eyes to a lot of issues that I had. But then once I got to a certain point, I was like, okay, cool. You've helped me. You've shown me a lot of different things, but we're kind of just like at a plateau. Like even I felt like when I noticed I was at a plateau, I was like, okay, I need to switch things up. And I was like, hey, I love you, but I am not getting anything anymore. And she was like, oh, okay. Well, and then if you just point blank tell them, like, I am literally not getting anything from you. I have grown from you, but I'm just not getting anything. And that's when she's like, okay, well, I can refer you, or if you need a break, and then whatever. And I know a lot of people are afraid of that.
Mhm.
But they're not going to judge you. That's not their thing. They're not going to judge you for that. Like there's certain things where I like to a good example would be like you have your family doctor, your general practitioner. You go to them for literally everything, but once something gets like once it's out of their scope, they refer you out to different specialists. Like your GP isn't going to like do like a colonoscopy and figure out your GI tract issues, and they refer you out because they're like, I can't help you, so let me show you. And they're not going to be mad, like they can't know everything. And I guess maybe destigmatizing it does help because people don't realize like they can break up with their therapist.
Exactly. Like that's an okay thing
Yeah.
to do. That
It is a
that,
relationship.
one isn't like meant to be with you for your entire healing journey. That
Exactly.
you might have to go through different therapists or like coaches, trauma coaches. I've heard of them too and stuff like that. That you
Yeah.
might have to go through different things because like that made me feel so much better that the both of you guys, Marc and Hope, like I'm not necessarily scared to try to like find another therapist and be like, okay,
Yeah.
that's cool that like you can help me for this chapter in my life. And that if that starts to plateau and kind of come to an end, that it's okay to be like, hey, this is now what I need and I'm not getting that. So can you help me get to what I'm looking for? Because they would know who to refer you to and stuff like that. Makes
Yeah, and
total
I've had
sense.
that. Yeah, I've had patients say, hey, listen, I don't, you've helped me. I don't feel like I'm getting anything more out of this. I need to deal with X, Y, and Z. That's not where you specialize in. I say, okay, no worries. Let me help you. Give you a list of people that take your insurance, yada, yada. And I wish you all the luck.
Because there's still a resource for you and they
Yeah.
still want to help you and see you grow. That's still their ultimate journey. That's why they're in therapy.
Yeah.
That's true.
So one thing too that we kind of need to understand is not all therapists were created equal. We do have great, amazing therapists out there, and we have some that will
I've talked
benefit
with
additional training. I've
talked with Liz about this, and
So I missed that first part. I didn't fully get that first part. I'm sorry.
Oh, I said that not all therapists were created equal. There's some
Oh.
amazing, great therapists out there, but some will benefit from additional training. And like Hope was saying, oh, they're not going to judge you. And I'm like, and if they do judge you, that's kind of like another hint of maybe
Red
this
flag.
isn't the right therapist for me.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I, as a therapist, like I've been on both sides where like I had therapists where I was like, oh yeah, this is great. But then after a while, I was like, yeah, I'm not really getting much of it like out of here. Like I love like having a space for me to talk, but I'm not learning much. And then I found another therapist and I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I needed. Right. And now when I am in the therapist chair, I am very conscious about that. And I'm like, hey, there are certain things that I do not know how to do. So if you're looking for someone who is doing like EMDR or someone who's doing a specific type of therapy, I cannot help you, but I will try to find, resources for you. That's kind of why I'm collecting like all the therapists, like Pokemon, because they have like experiences and knowledge and resources that I do not have access to. I only do virtual therapy at this time, so I do not feel comfortable having someone who would need a lot more resources than I can offer just virtually, because I don't know, I can see anyone like from California, and I'm not familiar with everything and like every resource in California. So I'm like, I think this person will benefit more from seeing someone in person, someone who is familiar with the local resources and can find this person like the community that they need or whatever. So as therapists, we also need to have that awareness of I don't know, what to do, whether you're licensed or you've been in the field for 100 years or whatever. Like sometimes you need to admit to yourself that I'm not the right therapist for this person, and it's actually a disservice to the person that you're working with to try
Yes,
to continue working with them when you don't know or understand.
it's
Um,
unethical.
Yeah.
Yes, and again, that's why I wanted Marc to be a part of this panel too, because I'm like, I still feel kind of iffy. Like I know what to do when someone talks about suicide and stuff, but I still not fully comfortable with it. And I'm like, I would love, yes, I would love more training, more for us to talk and discuss this, more often, and not only for the community at large, but also for specifically for therapists, or for people who are kind of like me and are in a program that does not offer any sort of training or anything like that in this
Right.
area.
And just to add to that a little bit, like from the therapist point, again, if you're not trained enough, if you don't feel comfortable, it's your ethical responsibility to refer them out. And if you're the client and you're dealing with suicide and you don't feel a therapist is trained enough, they're not helping you, any of that, it's okay to get another one just because this one is not the right one. Sometimes it takes two or three. Don't give up just because this one isn't the right. Try somebody else, try a third, try a fourth. I guarantee you, by that time, you will find someone who knows what they're doing.
It honestly makes me think of sports, right? And like coaching, and that so sometimes like whether it's kids and any level of sports, you have your general, well, I guess we'll go like with the pros. You have your head football coach, and then you have all of these other specialty coaches, and the head coach is like, well, I generally coach, but if I want to get specialized, I need to have my players spend time with I need to bring in these specialists to help my players to
Yes.
continue their growing. Like they know that they can't do all the things, and that their capacity is only so much because they are only human. They have to do the whole whole kit and caboodle. And then they have their quarterback coaches and their line coaches and all the other special things for the special needs of that player and what they need to help them develop to become the bigger whole. So like I'm a sports nut. Sorry. That's just where my brain
Oh,
totally
please.
went with you guys talking about that and being able to, hey, like I don't know that. It's okay because there are other ones out there that do, and that's why they're there to all come together in the sense of we are therapy and we help people. In the sense of sports and coaching, we are coaches and we help our sport. It's like, someone asking you to do EMDR and you try to take it on. That's like, hey, football coach, teach me how to play baseball. Like, it's just not going to work because that's just not what we do. And I don't know how to do that. Sorry. But hey, I know some coaches because I am a coach and we have a community of general coaches, and I can help you direct you in someone that I would trust you with. Like concept wise, that's just where my brain kind of went back.
No,
A
yeah.
million percent.
And my brain goes into D&D. So we talked about how important having a community is, right? And it's the same thing, whether like you mentioned, I know nothing about sports, but I'm so glad you brought it up because like it is a great thing. Like, so when you are coaching a team, it's not just you, it's a whole community that's trying to do this one thing, right? And then so when you are playing D&D or any sort of like TTRPG, you need to build a party, and you have to have a healer, and you have to have a tank, and you have to have a
Yes.
whatever, right? And then so in our life, like not only as therapists, but just as normal community people, we also need to have that. So do you have a healer, in that's part of your community or part of your team? Do you have someone who is the tank? Okay, my knowledge of D&D is also limited, so this is the worst. But okay, but essentially it's like you have to build that community, right? So and if you don't have it, start looking it up. Like I'm like, I started by like reaching out to people because I like the name of their company, or because I like their logo or whatever. And then that's how I started building my community, right? So you can do the same thing. You can start doing it in person. You can build an online community, and it's all helpful because earlier, Brooke, when you were talking about your own experiences and sort of like your internal dialogue that you had, it reminded me of this one story, and I don't remember all the details, but there was this one person that ended up telling, I think he was a content creator, that they had a plan of how they were going to, you know, uh, kill themselves. And they were like, oh, well, but this person is like streaming. I think it was like a D&D campaign or something. They're like, well, I'll do it afterwards. But they kept doing it like every like day. And then eventually that person like was able to overcome all the struggles that they were facing. And then they were like, oh, like it was because they just were waiting for like the next stream, the next whatever that like really helped them out. And then that's
Yeah.
how they were able to find their community, right? And then so like, because before I think I used to have this sort of like bias because I didn't understand it. I didn't understand what having an online community was like, right? Because all I ever knew was having like in-person friends. But there is a lot of value to have an online supportive community, like somewhere where you can feel like you can be yourself, you can be in contact, make jokes, play the video games, have just someone in the background saying nice things, or like making jokes, entertaining you. That is like, that has a lot more value than sometimes we give it credit. So,
A million
if
percent.
you are a content creator and like you don't see a lot of people, because this is one thing too that I learned from my brother, because sometimes I would be like, oh, we're getting views, but nobody's getting comments, or like no one's commenting on my videos. And then my brothers are like, well, yeah, but I never comment on anything because I'm too shy. And then I'm like, oh, yes. Okay. And I was like, oh, that's
It makes
right.
sense.
Not everyone's like me. Okay. So then, like, even if you feel like it's not working, every now and then, I will get a message from someone, be like, hey, I really thought it was really cool that you did this. And I was like, oh my God, it's working. Like, as long as it's reaching that one person, I am happy. Right. And, so I'm just hoping like the more content that I create, or the more panels that we have, and the more resources that we offer to people, it is going to reach the people that really need it. That's why I highly
Yes.
encourage people to share the content on their socials, whether it's something that you found helpful for yourself or not, but you think maybe somebody would will find it helpful. Share it,
Yeah, it's the same
because
idea. Yeah.
that's how resources sort of like get spread around, right?
Right. And it's the same idea, you keep trying, you keep going, you don't give up. It's just like for you, with this content, it is going to blow up. Same thing with people who are struggling with suicide. There will come that thing, whether it's a resource, a therapist, a friend, something that is going to be that thing that's going to keep you. And you just comment on something you said before, uh, I I do like to focus on what's going right in people's lives as well. That one thing that, okay, you haven't killed yourself yet. Why not? What's going on? What's going right? And I once had, I kid you not, someone who once said, if I kill myself, who's going to feed my goldfish?
Yep.
It
I'm like,
could
you know
be
what?
the smallest,
Valid.
stupidest,
I know. And I'm like, I don't
littlest.
care. I am going on that like a fly on shit. I don't care. I am
Yep.
harping on that. I do have a question though for Amber and Hope. So
Actually,
from your guy,
I
yeah, I have
was
a question
gonna
for you
ask
guys.
on the other side for Amber, so yeah, go for it.
I have a question for you guys. So
Yeah.
you guys are, a cleanup crew, correct?
Yes.
You guys have cleaned up
Mhm.
after suicides, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
So from your experience, this might put you on the spot. From your guys' experience, what would you say is something that maybe you would want, whether it's therapists or lay people, to know that they might not know, that maybe you learned uniquely from your occupation?
I love you so much right now.
Amber, you go first, since you're more so currently in the situation.
Okay. Yes. So one thing from the other side of this, I mean, I just cleaned up a suicide yesterday. Like, this is how fresh this is for me. So it was kind of like when you were talking about how there's the difference between suicidal ideation, and there's a spectrum, right, of harm. okay, to where someone's just maybe thinking these thoughts, to where someone is actively at the top of the bridge and at the end of their rope. I mean, there is a spectrum. So actually, from my experience and the suicides that I have responded to, there is a different weight with each suicide that I have cleaned. And what I mean by that is from a child suicide versus, you know, someone who hasn't lived their life, someone who is, you know, very young, and just this came on unexpectedly, not maybe not, but just the initial response to this, versus a person who is later in their life with late stage cancer, financial problems and things, and there's these stories surrounding each suicide, right? There's different circumstance. No one kills themselves for a single reason. It's always a multitude of factors, I mean, including, you know, drug use, alcohol, or there could be mental illness. There could be neither of these things. There could be a totally other life situation or circumstances, but it's just such a melting pot, so unique. And so I would say the thing that I want folks to know is, when I'm going into some of these situations, that suicide looks different in every circumstance. And when it's like, when I'm looking at these things, I can see that perhaps this could have been prevented in certain ways. Like, there are so many ways in this place that I could have seen prevention coming. And then I go into another circumstance that's more like absolutely so intense and or so violent or so you know, there are suicides, I say, that are like quiet to me, that are just, they, you know, there are people who planned for 10 months how they were going to do this. I mean, they've left the receipts for the items that they've used next to their will and the trust and everything that they want, with letters and envelopes to each family member as to why they were going to do this. They were in control of their thoughts and feelings to just organize this in a certain way, versus someone who went to the 7-Eleven and got just shitty drunk, and there's alcohol bottles all around them, and it was just, you know, a shotgun blast, like in this split moment. But there's these mindsets are different by suicide. I mean, so there's like this plan, there's the oh, hey, she knew I needed her. There's the plan, there's the you know, just that instantaneous rage, or that not instantaneous exactly, there's obviously build up and things, but there's these moments that maybe wouldn't have been done if there were, you know, 30 less cans of beer here. The mindset might have been different. But there are just these displays and types of deaths that I'm seeing. And then there's another type of death in a suicide that is, this pertains to not wanting to die, but wanting to end pain, where folks will build contraptions to stop themselves from, so for example, if you were going to kill yourself, and maybe you have attempted before, but you were scared and you stopped yourself, that they build contraptions so that in that moment of fear, they can't stop themselves. Like, it's going to happen no matter what. They build contraptions to prevent the stopping of their own fear of death. And so I would say that circumstances are in fact unique as far as the level of care that this person may have needed in prevention. So, you know, working with a child who's possibly dealing with a neglectful home life or bullying at school, and the type of intervention and the things that you're looking for to be able to intervene is going to look very different than a military veteran with alcoholism who has seen death and has faced off in certain circumstances, like that type of therapy that they're going to need, versus it's different for everybody as far as, I would say, the intensity and the level of care to talk that person off of that ledge. So it's no one size fits all, because I think that a lot of times we look at suicide like it's the same circumstance, like somebody takes their life and that's the end of it, and it's the same around everything. And I go, no, it's true that this is the combining factor in all these, is that somebody takes their life, and this is where, you know, it all relates. But every situation is so unique regarding their mental health, the type of, maybe if they have a mental disorder or if they don't have a mental disorder, their home life versus anything else, substance abuse, so many different things. So there are different types of therapy. There are therapists, I'm sure, who focus on substance abuse, or fentanyl, and people who are more educated in these fields versus in people who are more educated in child psychology. And I think it's just so important for these professionals to know that suicide prevention should be like studied and talked about in all of these different fields, because they are all needed and they are all relating to suicide. Does that make sense? Am I sounding?
No, yeah.
That made a
Totally.
lot of sense.
Okay.
That was awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, no, because it also makes me think too of how aware doctors, sometimes even religious people, need to be aware of this, because again, it's the people that we trust or the community that we have. Sometimes people will reach out to them, and if they're like, what do I do? It's a completely different thing than they're like, oh, okay, well, here are the resources that you may be able to help. I can go with you to ask for for more help, or set up the first appointment, or I can do it for you or whatever. Like, it's completely different. That's why we need to talk about it so much, because if somebody came to you now and said, hey, I'm really struggling and I just kind of wanted to end it all, like, what would you say? Did you know the phone numbers to call? Did you know what the resources are in your area? Like, those are things that should be essential. Like, I have this thing with my brother where I do a lot of community presentations at libraries and other organizations here about mental health. And one of the ones that I want to do is I title it "Things I Wish I Knew as a Child," or like growing up. And like, these are things that I'm like, I wish that we had a class like this, or something like in high school, right? Because it's so important for us to know. Just like we had like sex education, we should have a class like this. But I have more opinions on what should be taught in school, but that's for another panel. But yeah, it's so essential for a lot of people in the community to have the knowledge and at least of the resources available in their area.
Hope, what do
And
you
I feel like
think?
it's really important to continue. Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
sorry. I'm just so curious to see what Hope has to say about it too, just because.
No, I'm totally curious about that too, but I just want to on the importance of asking community and asking, being able to ask your community and your community being able to answer. I feel like that's why we need to talk about this, and that way asking for help when dealing with suicide is almost as common as asking for help with moving, or asking for help with changing your oil, or asking for help with, hey, can you help me build my fence? I really think that that's what we're trying to go for, and I just wanted to blurb that out.
Yes.
So
Yep.
Hope, all you go, girl.
So like Amber as well, I was in the deep of it with these suicides and the after effects of it, but I also want to talk about the people surrounding the person. I've been in so many situations where the next of kin was the one who called us to come. A lot of the times they're actually present when it happens. I've been to a lot of situations where there's one where the wife and the child was with the husband when he did it, and the wife was actually struggling to keep the gun away from him. And there's a lot of, and they may have failed, and that's why we were called, obviously, but there's, not only do Amber and I, when we're put in these situations, just clean it up, we're actually so much more than that. We're not only the cleanup crew, but we're the insurance advocate. If it's covered by the insurance, we are also the first point of contact. We're also a resource, how to fix these things. There's been times where I've literally had the next of kin just sit there and cry on my shoulder because of what has happened. Whether it's an adult or a child, there's times where I've had to clean up situations where it was the parent, for whatever reason, they just couldn't do it, and it happened, and you see the splatter on the child's toys, and the child's like, first off, why is my parent not there? But now I can't even have this thing that we played with together, because technically we have to dispose of it because it is biohazardous and contaminated, and trying to help the next of kin get through the process as well, because there's been times where they're like, what could I have done? Because they're not professionals, and they're like, what could I have done? I don't know how to do these situations, or like a kid could be like, is this my fault? And then that could set them off, and it's like, no, no, no. Like, even if he had the best of intents, like, no one is prepared for this. And even with like Liz, she's a professional, she's a doctor, but she is not necessarily trained in this field 100%, so not everyone has the key to these situations. And I've had to listen to these stories over and over again with multiple different people, multiple different situations, and just being there to help guide these people. And that's another big thing that people don't realize, like what Amber and I do and have done is, it's not just cleaning. It is, we are the first step in the healing. We are that first step process. And, yes, we are obviously focusing on like people who are suicidal, but it does affect the community around said person. To kind of bounce off of that, back to Amber, do you feel comfortable talking about Nathan?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. I was actually just gonna say, like, oh my god, you made so many good points right now. I love you so much. And also,
I love you too,
I'm
babe.
so sorry. If you see my cat, come over here. My cat consents when we're talking about hard stuff, so she's like solidarity right now. She comes over and she's like, it's okay, guys. So, so if you see her, I'm sorry. But so as a crime scene cleaner, I had a teammate. This was back when I was working for a different crime scene cleanup company and corporation, and his name is Nathan. And one of my friends, best crime scene cleaner I ever trained, military veteran, he had his own struggles. And now in this instance, my teammate died by suicide. And I want to just bring up the point that everybody connected to a suicide that happens, there's a lot of blame. Just in this grieving process, it happens. It's not on purpose, but there's always like, and that's another kind of stigma sometimes I think in suicide situations, is people feel blame or want to blame. They just like, they're angry. They have, there's no, usually if a murder happens, you're like, oh, that person killed them. I have a thing to hold on to. But when it's your person who did it, where does that where does that feeling go? So a lot of times we take it on ourselves. And I know that as a leader with Nate, I saw those red flags. I called my corporate office and I wanted his emergency contact number, and he didn't have one. And again, I want to bring up this point with Nate, that he did a lot of things. We actually found his suicide note that he had written 17 months prior. So 17, before he even worked with us, before I had ever met him. And he actually came down from Washington because he struggled with alcoholism. He had, unfortunately, as a veteran, experienced some extreme trauma in Afghanistan. And he lost his entire team to a suicide bomber. And he was the only survivor. So he had demons that he was going through. And he had a traumatic brain injury. And as crime scene cleaners, these are things I didn't know until after. I knew he was a veteran. I knew he struggled with things. And as his leader, and as I got to know him, I was trying to, just because with all of I love my team. I want to protect us. We have to be able to be healthy in order to do the job that we do. So I know your mom. I know all of your emergency contact numbers. I know where you live. I am just overprotective mom, supposedly, about what I do, but I do that for a reason. Yeah. So
I was like that with my crew, because I was
so
also the supervisor. Nate, I was mama bear.
Yeah, and Nate kept to himself. He kept to himself completely, and just he lied and that he lived with roommates, when in reality, after the fact, we found out he was living with his mom. And there's just things that these are factors that a person, he made a choice to say these things and do these things, and you can only help somebody so much as you know, and so much as you can respond. As I received the final phone call I ever had with him, I was red flags everywhere. I was freaking out because something was wrong. And I just thought, you know what, I'm giving you 2 days off. You need time. Are you okay? Where are you? I'm coming to you right now. And he goes, please leave me alone. These are his words. I'm tired. I just need time. And he said, and I go, I'm going to kick in your door. Don't think I won't. Like, where are you? He's like, I'm fine. And I know you will, Amber. He's like, I know you would. He goes, so I'm okay. I'm tired. I just need to sleep. And those were kind of like one of the last conversations I had with him. And then I went, even after I hung up the phone, I was like, I need his address. And I was, I was told I was a little too motherly by my team and everybody else, and to just leave the man alone. Well, there I was 24 hours after the incident had occurred at his doorstep after I had found the address and met his mother, who is the most amazing human being. I love her so much. She has helped me a lot in my own healing. But as a leader and as somebody who was also juggling all these different factors of like, where's the line between being you're working with somebody, so we are friends, but also I'm a manager. I can't just go barge into somebody's home, and be like, hey, what's up? Especially when nobody has relinquished that information to me or willingly given it to me. Ethically, I did give him 2 days off. So how am I going to explain showing up on your doorstep when you're, outside of work? There's also these ethical things but everything in my mind was just like out the window because he was in crisis and I was going to go find him. So, but nevertheless, I just want to say there's always that feeling of blame, and it took a long time for me to trust myself again and know that it is not my fault. It is not anyone. Even if you miss the red flags, it is still not your fault. He purposely went to a hotel room where nobody could find him. He made these choices of what he was going to use. And he did this. And it was his part to play in that as well. And I did everything that I could do. And that was enough. And it will always be enough. As whatever, reaching out to your friend, regardless of, reaching out, doing what we can. If we lose somebody, it's awful. And of course it's not okay. And we're always going to do better and try to build tools and do prevention. But I just want to hold space for that sort of like that feeling of blame that comes after suicide. You did enough.
100%.
You did enough. Like family members, parents who lost children, what more could I have done in that time with the knowledge that you had and the life that you were living and the things that you were doing?
Exactly.
You did enough. And now you're doing more, or if you're getting involved like we are. So, but just definitely witnessing other families with that blame is a big one. And then one more thing it's kind of like a little veer off, I guess, but it is. So like you mentioned, like your situation where it was, I guess, the wife with the child trying to keep the gun from the person.
Yeah.
And this is kind of like, I guess, a taboo within a taboo. So we have suicide, and I think all of us are well versed in prevention as far as, reaching out, looking for warning signs and talking to our people and being accountable as friends and professionals and in our relationships. But there are also, this is kind of where some of the other things cross, because I have a background working with domestic violence victims.
Yep.
So sometimes when people are in crisis or saying they want to hurt themselves or kill themselves, there are times for us to respond ourselves as friends and community members. But if anyone is ever using suicide as a means to control you or bring harm to you, threatening to kill themselves and you, or using it as a means of like, if you try to leave me and you take the kids, I'm gonna that type of thing. I'm not saying that they're not suicidal, and that is, it's absolutely valid to care for that person and want to get them help. But if they are choosing not to call the crisis line, if they are choosing not to seek help, and they are just utilizing suicide and their mental struggle as a way to bring harm to you, and you have children, you have dependents, you have animals, you're important too. It is okay to step away from that person. It is okay to seek help for yourself, even if they unfortunately die by suicide. If you have reached out to their family members, if you have called 988, if you have called the police, if you have done your you've done your part. And again, I just say that because I know there's always this, like, sometimes when I go into scenes and it's been a murder suicide and it's usually a domestic violence situation that had happened, I would rather there be one death instead of two.
Yes.
And I'm sorry if that sounds harsh, but I just think that folks who everyone, it has the opportunity to kind of like Brooke, when you were talking about that internal monologue of going and getting yourself, you at some point, if a person does not have a conversation with themselves about trying to get help, because we can't help anyone if they do not want to help themselves. And
True.
90% of the time they are reaching their hand out and you are to grab it, and we're going to work together and get them help, and they are trying. I go, but there are some situations with mental health, toxic relationships, and domestic violence where suicide is used as a means of control or manipulation.
Totally.
And I just want to like also hold space for those family members and friends of people who have seen those experiences, especially because our youth today, like, I mean, ride or die with their, these words that we use, or what Rihanna and Eminem, like, if you ever try to leave, I'm gonna set the house on fire. And and it's funny, but it's like, we're especially young women, I feel like, can be impressionable about wanting to help with mental health, but also be manipulated by, hey, I'm feeling
1,000%,
suicidal right now and it's 2:00 in the morning and I'm out here in the middle of the night, can you come? If it's leading you to an unsafe situation and your friend is trying to get you to do something that you're uncomfortable with or scared because it's a scary situation, reaching out to other people to help instead of going yourself is absolutely okay. Choosing yourself to be able to survive another day and help other people is important, and it's not wrong. And so I just want to bring that up too, because it's like it just gets complicated.
I mean,
Yes.
there is that idea too of like, oh, you're the love of my life, and I would die for you, kind of thing. And now,
But would you live for me?
as an adult, I'm like, well, but I need you here, though. I would rather you live for me than die for me. So, there's a lot of things in our society that sort of make it an option, to do these things, or to eventually you find yourself stuck in these situations that are unsafe for you and for the other person as well.
1,000,000%. And I tell people, patients, a lot of times, there's nothing noble about setting yourself on fire to keep others warm.
Yep.
Yes.
I love that.
Preach it.
For real.
So, yeah, it's great to help others, but you got to make sure you're taken care of first. You're the first. When you throw a stone in a pond, you're that first ripple. Then once that first ripple, then you can help the other ripples.
Like the concept of filling up your cup first and having your cup overflow into other people's cups and not pouring from your own.
Exactly. Or classic with the plan and ask, same thing. It's the same idea. You need to make sure you're good first before you can help somebody else, 100%. And if you are in a place to help somebody, then 100%. And just like Anna was saying, if somebody does decide to make that decision at the end of the day, you did all that could be reasonably expected of you. It was their decision in the end. And afterward, you're gonna have this blame and say, oh, what if I did that? You're asking that with information you have after the fact. Before the fact, did you have this information? No. So you have to judge it, so to speak, based on that information, not what you have now.
I mean, one thing that we kind of like skipped over a little bit was people's mental health in the workplace.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like what Amber was saying, that like, she was a supervisor, she was a boss, but like that's also a part of being in charge of other people, like understanding. And there is a lot of in the crime cleanup, that's like, yes, you see a lot of things that most of us would never or even know if it wasn't for like the podcast, or like knowing people that work in those fields. Like otherwise we wouldn't really know any of that, or what it truly is like to have this as your main job. And there's a lot of difficult jobs out there as well, where if you're a first responder, if you are a doctor, trying their very best, like especially during COVID, where it was like so very difficult, and you're working like it is really, really weird to me still for us to have these really expectations of like doctors working like 60 plus hours a week and that being like completely okay. And like even before when they were being trained and they're not making enough money, but they're expected to like basically live at the hospital and know all these things and be able to do all these things. And I'm like, we're only human. There's only so much what we're capable of. We also need rest. We also need to have a life outside of our jobs, and that's important too. I know that we unfortunately we do live in a capitalist society where a lot of this sort of goes out the window, because what really matters is how much money we're making. So if you have to see 70, 80 clients in a week and still attend meetings and still have time for lunch and stuff, that's what you have to do. But it shouldn't be like that. I think that's why a lot of people are choosing. I think I saw this post the other day that I think it was millennials and Gen Zers are like really like more comfortable with quitting jobs that are not giving them what they need
Yep.
than other
Mhm.
generations. And I'm like, yes, definitely. Like that's something that I like highly encourage. If you're in a situation where you have that support to be able to quit that job and to find another one, that's great. But sometimes we find ourselves in a situation where like, if I leave this job, I have no other support, I have no other job. So it can be rather difficult in situations like that. So those are all things too that for us to keep in mind, that it doesn't happen in a vacuum. There's a lot of things in our environment, in our world, that need to be fixed in order to prevent things like this from happening, right? I am a big fan of saying that, to me, mental health is sort of like a tree, and we see the branches and the tree trunk or whatever, but the roots is kind of where it's at. That's where we're trying to dig up, like the root of the problem. That's where I like to start digging when it comes to addressing or difficulties and concerns in therapy.
The iceberg.
Yeah, and it's the same in our society as well, right? We only see like half of the tree, but we don't see the roots. And so again, the roots sometimes is the problems in our education system, the problems in our in the prison system. There's so many things in our society that need to be fixed, right? And then I'm like, I'm only one person, and there's so much that we could do or should be done for this. So I'm like, I'm going to concentrate on the little niche that I've created, the things that I'm passionate about. And that's what I highly encourage people, because there's sometimes a lot of concern where people are like, oh, well, are you not supporting what's happening in the Middle East? Are you not supporting women's rights or whatever? I'm like, I only have so much energy that I can give. So I've chosen to do it for mental health. So if you guys are passionate about this, I wholeheartedly support you guys, and go ahead and keep doing it. And if I have money, I could donate it. I could share the links. I can do all these things, right? But I can't be a part of every single
Yep.
sort of thing that's out there, right? So again, part of what I'm trying to do is build that community, create that space where people can feel safe to reach out for help. And that's what I'm doing with my nonprofit. And like Amber was saying, like, we can only do so much. But being aware, sometimes there is a tiny bit more that we can do, like becoming aware of the local resources in our area, like becoming aware of the red flags, reaching out to people. Sometimes, that's helpful. I've seen I think it's like a post of like this guy who lived like nearby, like I think it's like a bridge or something, and then whenever he saw people, he would just go and talk to them. And he was like, yeah, like he would just do that every single time he saw someone. And he said like, yeah, he's preventing a lot of people from like doing that, and all he did was talk to them, offer help. And sometimes that's all that's needed, you know.
You don't need to be a
All you need
clinician.
is 8 minutes. All you need is 8 minutes. I don't know if you guys have seen that TikTok, but I have, and that hit me square in just a gnarly gut punch. Like, all you need is 8 minutes. Someone that is severely struggling, all they need is 8 minutes of space with somebody, whether it's a professional or a friend or just anybody. All you need is 8 minutes.
It's not even, sometimes not even that much. Like, there's that famous story of the guy who He wanted to go to the Golden
Yeah.
Gate Bridge to jump off of it, and on the way on the bus, he was saying, like, if even just one person had asked me, hey, how you doing? Are you okay? Something of that nature, he would have stopped. Even just one person. So sometimes it's just a matter of saying good morning to somebody. Hey, how you doing? You doing okay? Even just those little things. Like, there's a story I was told years ago. It's very extreme, but the principle is the same. That, and I told the story a lot on a few live, actually, that back in the 30s, in Germany, for the Holocaust, there was this Jewish guy. He had a neighbor who was Jewish, and everyone the Jewish guy would say to his neighbor, good morning, Herr, Mister, whatever his name was. It was every morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, until eventually, got to the point where the Holocaust happened. This Jewish person was put on the train, brought to the camp, and he was in the line. Got to the person who was saying, left, right, where right is you go to the camp to work, left is you die. And the person who was saying left, right was this neighbor. He got up to him and says, good morning, Mr. Whatever, and goes, right. So obviously, he went to camp, he didn't die. So is it a very extreme example? Yes. But the principle is the same, that these small little things, you don't even know what effects they could have. They can ripple and they could branch out. You don't even know what they can do. And sometimes it's just 8 minutes. Sometimes it's just, hey, how you doing? Sometimes it's just good morning.
Totally. I think it's just the small concept of feeling seen, which is feeling seen.
Yes.
Like, I'm totally, if I see a girl and her hair looks really good, or I really like her shoes, even though I don't know who you are in the store, I am that random one that it's like, hey, I love your shoes. Hey, your hair looks great today. Like, even though I don't know you, I'm totally that one of like putting it forward in the universe and something like that. And then even after I had my son and being a first-time mom and postpartum and all of the things, everything else that comes with it, like, there's so much power in just feeling like I was seen, even just for a half second, just seen for being, not because I am a this or that or a whatever, or because my job title is this, because now I'm a mom and a wife and like whatever, like all the other titles are that come with whatever your life may be. I feel like just being seen as a human of, like
Yes.
walking in, or like your neighbors, good morning, or in the store, oh, hey, weather's great, isn't it? I hope you have a good one. Hey, I really like your shoes. Like, I hope you enjoy the day outside and like get some dirt on them. Like, whatever it may be. It's just that sliver of being seen. And then the concept of, if someone is in dire need of needing 8 minutes or whatever, because it could be the littlest thing. For me, it's sunrises, sunsets, and frickin' tractors. Like, I kid you not, I go tractor hunting and it makes me feel happy on the inside. And I just go and I look for tractors in the side of the desert because they make me happy. And on days when I know that my mental is not where it needs to be and I need that little bit of like sliver of hope, heartfelt serotonin, I will go drive around and go frickin' tractor hunting and go find my ass an excavator or a front loader or whatever and just kind of
That's
take
your
in the view and
goldfish.
breathe. That is literally my goldfish.
Well,
and
Well, hey, if you're
sunrises
looking
and
for a sliver of
sunsets.
hope, I'm right here. I got more than a
I
sliver.
got you. I got you now.
I
We
give
all
up
need
more
more
than
hope
I
in our
give.
lives.
I give
Yes,
out
we
hope
all
to
need more
everyone.
hope. My sliver led me to you, and that's
We all need more hope in our lives.
the point.
As Liz
No,
can tell
it's-
you, though, I'm like the biggest misnomer of my name. I'm just a succubus devil in with the name Hope. It's fine.
I mean, hey, that could be giving somebody hope. You don't know.
You never know.
Well, again,
No,
it's being able to have those hard conversations, right? Because when Hope was like, "Hey, you want to watch movies and talk about your mental health?" I was like, "Yeah." But then she always recommends these super sad movies, you guys, and those are the movies I avoid. I would never have chosen those movies
Marley and
for
Me?
myself. And
No,
I'm like,
so the first two movies I ever had Elizabeth on for my podcast, because I'm big into mental health. Like, I like asking the hard questions because I know people don't. So the first is Perfect Blue, which is an anime movie, and it centers around self-identity and violence and stalking and everything. Um, I remember getting the text and she's like, why did I agree to this? Like, she's like, it was so good, but why did I agree to this?
I was like crying, and then like the rest of the day, I was like, "Oh my god, it was so sad." And I'm like, "What did I even watch?" I had no idea. But again, like sometimes, like there's this other panel that I want to have where we talk about horror because I don't like it, but people love it. And just
I
having
love
those
Barone.
connections with people who love talking about like the meaning of life and being sort of like on the dark side of emotions and sitting with them. I am not one of those people, but I understand why it's necessary, right, to be able to do those things. But having that community, someone who can do that with you, it really is amazing, even if it's just that one person, right, that is able to do this for you. It really does change your world. And Brooke, yes, I do remember like the people that randomly go up to me and say like, oh, you look nice today, and then it just makes me feel great for the rest of the
Right?
day. And it's
No
a
matter
complete
what else happened, no matter
stranger.
who cut you off driving earlier, like no matter what your boss said, or no matter what Joe Schmo at the coffee shop said and like close the door in your face, like whatever, like just being seen for that second is like, you know what? I'm gonna have a good day. And
So
it just
like, yeah,
keeps
you
going.
look good today, yeah. So and so, like some random stranger said it, so it must be true, right? And then like, so it's little things like that we can. It's sort of like this extra step that we can do, right, in just in our daily life,
And
to be
being
able to
seen
offer that for someone.
is so I used to take the bus a lot when I was younger, and I remember I had like a person, I never knew their name, but it was just the same character every morning with me on the bus when we were, because I was taking it to go to school, right? And the city bus, I didn't take a school bus, I take the city bus. And so, but it's the same person, the same lady with the same grocery cart with the same, and I saw her for months. It was just we had the same route. And then I remember for a week I didn't see her, and I thought, where is she? Is she okay? Did something happen? Did she move? Like, but it's like you think that's just a person I don't even know on the bus, but I'm thinking about her right now, 10 years later, like where, like these small moments of, hi, how are you? The girl that hands you your Starbucks in the morning, she has the green hair and you love it so much and you tell her, but you notice people, even if they're not really like in your friend group or in your life. There are people that you come across that, just being nice to or having conversations with, even if you're just on the same bus route together, but you admire them, or you see their clothes, and that's how connected you are. Like you are connecting with other people every day, day in and day out. And we notice your absence is noticed. Your absence is absolutely noticed. And it's interesting. And so I always kind of try to keep that in mind when I am complimenting people, or I know I've seen this girl 3 or 4 times now, or I've seen, I'm just, these people are crossing my paths, is that just, even though it's for a moment or maybe 3 or 4 times, it's significant enough to remember. And I want you here in this world. I do miss your presence. Like she made me smile this morning in the drive-through line, or it's just these little things to hold on to. And maybe that conversation is telling them or complimenting them or telling them, hey, I see you. And when they think they're invisible to the world is important. And it's just there's these very, very small things that we can do that matter, and then versus even the bigger things that we can do, but they matter, and they are those ripples. So that's just really cool.
Totally. Like, I
Yeah.
think that us seeing other people and actually seeing other people and acknowledging people, taking that moment to see other people allows not only us to be seen, but for us to actually see ourselves and start to give ourselves that moment to allow ourselves to be seen
In a
in all that
way,
we are.
yeah, because if you think about it in one way, by seeing other people and by acknowledging them, almost like in a way validating them, it's showing yourself that, okay, yeah, I have a positive force in the world. And
Mhm.
by me having a positive force in the world, I matter.
Well, and not only that, but like, so if you're giving someone else validation and worthiness and whatever word you want to put on it, someone you don't even know, that you're just walking by and like, ooh, I hope they have a great day, like go them, whatever you're thinking. Why can't you give that to yourself? Because you are worthy of that too.
Yeah.
If you can give that to some random person you don't even know, and you down to your core, even if we're still, figuring it out in the mess and everything, if you can give someone else that grace and that type of love and friendship and kindness, a lot, like seeing someone else, at least for me, allows me to see myself and be like, well, you know what? I'm worthy of that kindness too, from myself. because I
Yeah.
am my biggest bully still to this day. And when I take a moment, and if I'm feeling down on myself or whatever, I know I make a point, like I need to find 3 things that are on the outside of the world, outside of me and my control. I need to see 3 things, whether it's people, a thing, whatever. I need to notice 3 things and be still and see 3 things. So that way, because I know that I need to see those things in myself. I need to give myself that love, and I don't feel like I'm worthy of it. So I'm going to see 3 things, give that love to something else that I don't even know. And it's just going to help my brain be like, you know what? You can be kind to yourself too. Like you can see yourself in the things that you find beauty in, kind of.
I always encourage anyone that I work with to think about, like, well, what if if it was a friend? What would you say to a friend at this moment? And that's something that I think to myself sometimes. I'm like, if I'm like, being really hard on myself, I'm like, well, if it was a friend, like, what would I do? If it was like my brother that was struggling with the same thing, like, what would be my advice to him? And then like I try to follow that as well, because sometimes we do forget we have a whole different measuring stick that we use for ourselves and for other people. So yeah, just thinking about what would a friend, or like, what was it, the thing that you had, Marc, you had a what would Marc say in your thing? Like, it's just like, what would somebody else think, right? And then like I saw this thing, I made a post a while back. Yeah, there you go.
I love it.
I give it to my patients so they remember what we talk about in sessions.
I love that so much.
Liz yells at me almost every day because of this, because I know I am a big hypocrite. I will be the biggest mental health advocate out there. I will do everything for everybody, but I know I'm a hypocrite. I put myself last. I know I am. I admit it. And Liz every day yells at me. She's like, "Oh, what was your self-care? Oh, stop it. Oh, do the thing." And I'm like, okay.
listen, and when I have to do self-care, I'm like, I have to have something to report to Hope. Like, it goes both ways. So I'm like, oh, I have to do self-care because then I have to tell Hope about it.
It's good to have
So,
that
like,
accountability, buddy.
right? Yeah. And yeah, so like, again, having that community it's important. And I don't want, I know there's so much more we can talk about when it comes to this topic, but I want to be mindful of your time as well. So if anyone listening out there, if you want to know more from these great, amazing people, or from the projects that they are working on or they have out, we will have other information in the description as well. But please let us know if you have questions, if there are other taboo topics out there that are not being discussed, that we should have a panel on. Maybe we can do a part 2 about this if you guys are interested. So, because there's so much more information we can share, more questions. So please write it down in the comments if you feel comfortable. If not, that's okay. Have someone else write it for you. But before we go, I do want to give everyone an opportunity to again shout out, where can people find you? What sort of work that you are doing? Do you have socials? And show off the projects that you are working on.
Yeah. So
Any volunteers?
I'll
Go
go
first.
first. So you can find me on Instagram at Alchemy Counseling, also on TikTok at The Mental Health Alchemist. If you are a therapist out there and you don't feel super comfortable in your skills when it comes to working with suicide, how to intervene with a suicidal patient, you can find my book, The Alchemy Approach. It is on Amazon in paperback. You can also find the link on my Instagram for a digital version if you'd rather that. It's purposefully short. It'll give you everything you need, not just to prevent, but to intervene right when you have it. Quick assessment, quick intervention, get them out of those throes of life and death. Other than that, if you want to work with me personally, I am licensed in New York, Florida, Connecticut, and New Jersey. You can find my content information on my Instagram. If depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, you want to work with me, I'm here for you.
So you're registered in Florida, huh? So you're gonna make visits to me, yay!
I'll take referrals.
Also, but yeah, Marc, I expect a signed copy. Just saying, of your book.
Same.
I can do that.
Same.
Actually. DM me your addresses. I'll send it to you.
All right, fair.
Wait,
I'll go next.
Oh.
You can find more information about my mental health project called the Pinky Promise Project on my store's website called royaltydesignco.com. Or I did just also make an Instagram for the project. It is on Instagram. It's Pinky Promise Project _. The links for all of that, though, you can find on my personal socials, which is just xxtatqueenxx. We'll put the link in the description with the podcast. It's not cat queen, it's tat like tattoos. I also wrote a guided daily journal that's available on Amazon. Some of the sense that we were talking about and tracking your self-care and stuff like that starts to do with an affirmation and just spots to brain dump and acknowledge your feelings and allow yourself to see yourself.
So for me, if you want to listen to my podcast, it is going to under Jazz Sharks, but the podcast that I do is Mind Brain Movies. We are on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, you name it. But if you want my personal socials, I am at biohazard_Leia, and that'll also have the link tree to everything else. Also, if you want to know more about Amber, we just had a podcast that by the time this episode comes out will be out, and I interview the crap out of her. So, and all the amazingness that she does, and yeah.
Her podcast is so much fun. And so I'm in Fresno, California. My company is Reaper Clean. So we are crime scene cleaners. I respond to homicides, suicides, accidental deaths, hoarding situations. I do disinfection services. I offer different things for like veterans, elderly people who need assistance, and we offer lots of local resources. So I have a crisis line. We're 24/7 on call. So you can look me up at www.reaperclean.com. I'm Reaper Clean on Instagram and Facebook. There might be an underscore in there. You'll know it's the girl in the gas mask. If you see the little logo, that's me.
Ever, just saying.
And then I do have a TikTok, but I'm so getting the hang of the social media stuff just because I'm so on the go. It's really hard for me to kind of stop and do the videos, but we're trying. And so I have a TikTok. There's just not much on there yet. But Instagram is mainly my thing. And I also follow, like, I'm going to obviously stalk everybody's. If I haven't added you yet, I will. But the Reaper Clean Instagram is kind of cool because if you go to the people that I follow, I'm just following pretty much different therapists, different mental health organizations, other businesses or nonprofits or things that pertain to just all of the plethora of things that I think intersect with what we do. And I try and share like grief support groups and stuff going on like every day if I can. So yeah, stay in touch with me and I'll stay in touch with all of you.
Girl, you are the resource.
Facts.
Dude, I'm always in awe
Trying.
of her. I'm always in awe of her.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
well,
we want to
thank you
talk about death care. That's it. That's the thing. So.
Yes. So thank you everybody for joining me today, taking the huge chunk of your weekend to do this with me. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for sharing your stories. I know sometimes they're very personal, but I know they're very helpful for other people to understand and see. Hey, I'm not the only one. Other people either have very similar experiences that I have, and it gives us that startup of like it's okay to talk about these things, to normalize them. And thank you so much. I know this is going to be a really long video and I am totally okay with that, so thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. And check out everyone's information. It's going to be in the description. Please do subscribe to this channel and let us know what you think about this this talk that we had. Any questions that you may have for these lovely people for a part 2, if that's something that you're interested in. And also check out our other socials where we have a lot more resources on mental health as well. And don't forget to reframe and re-enchant your life. And I will see you on the next panel interview / podcast thing that I release, which I don't know. So subscribe so you know when I know. All right. Bye.
I love you all. Bye.
Bye.